We are live! Hello, everyone. Welcome back to 40K Frontiers, episode 16. Balanced as all things should be. Some very Thanos-esque stuff. With me today, we've got the lovely, ever grateful Mr. Towse. How you doing, buddy?
Yo, what's up? I am busy, because we're organized people, copying our questions to the Google Doc. How are we doing? I'm doing great otherwise, though.
Just on time. And as always, rocking a new do, I might say, looking sexier than ever. The big cat, Ben Way. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you? How are you, boys?
Good, man.
It's good to be here on a Wednesday night.
It is. No, it's good. It's been too long since we've had like a regular one of these. Sam's just like, yo, boys, we got interviews. And it's like, Sam, when do we get to catch up, dude?
Yeah, why bother talking to anyone else? We just want to talk about ourselves, right? No, of course. No, that's what we'll do. We're trying to highlight other areas of 40K and talk to them. So, myself, Sam, obviously, on the podcast. So, we're going to be an eclectic sort of show in terms of cover some of the recent events. So, obviously, the Decked Up Gaming GT in South Australia, we'll talk about briefly. A couple of weeks ago, maybe, I don't know how long ago it was now, Ben Way will talk about his New South Wales team champs. So, TOing the inaugural event of the New South Wales team champs, how that all went and some lessons learned and stuff like that. And then just recap from around the crowd what's been happening with us individually. And also, we've got a bunch of questions to answer. So, yeah, but starting things off, I guess we'll go with you, Towse? Or is there a little plug we should do?
You do your plug, Sam.
Get your plug in, mate. Get it in there.
Get the plug in. So, for anyone who wants to support the Best in Tabletop Network, you can join us on Patreon patreon.com/Best in Tabletop. Pachow. There we go. But yeah, there's some good old tabletop minions Adam there. Link is in the description down below. So for $10 a month, you can join the best Discord in 40K. Not biased at all there. Or you can join the YouTube Premium areas, which is a members only area. Get some additional content, some behind the scenes stuff. I know they are about to do a whole bunch of the LVDL Las Vegas Team Champs recaps. So there'll be a bunch of content coming out there from Colin and his team that attended, and everything else that was good. All the Chase the Narrative Part 2s and a bunch of the bit reps as well. So all that good stuff. And if you want both, the one price of one, that's for $15 a month, you can join the Discord and the YouTube Premium area, which is a great value for money if I do say so myself. So fantastic. And also merch. If you want to buy some merch, buy some t-shirts or singlets or mugs or whatever your heart desires, there's a link to the web store there where you can help purchase merch, and any funds on that help go towards the network. So it's always greatly appreciated. But starting around the crowd, so Towsey, what's been happening with you locally? A fair bit from the sounds of things.
Yeah, like so many things. Okay, so real basic. I've been playing some Custodies again because the data slate came out, and it's like, oh, so my bikes can go from winning Levy Warriors on 4s to 2s. Cool. I feel like taking bikes again. So I ran some Custody stuff. That's been fun. I signed up for the Vibe Check League with Stat Check. So that's their like TTS 40K tournament. I matched Innis round 1, and we had like some vibes were checked in that game because there were 13 War Dogs versus 13 Twin Cognus Las Cannons. So that was just like, oh, when I found out. I went first. I ran it down. I was rolling half my 5-ups. Innis couldn't roll anything higher than a 4 on his D3 plus 3. And I didn't play like an idiot, so that was about the game. He was really happy because he got an hour and a half to go paint GSC before his show. I was happy because now we can meme about it. I have now lost to Nathan, but not Innis, from the people on StatCheck. Yep. What else? I've got like a paragraph of stuff for me to go through. I'm running my next event next weekend. So like behind me, if anyone's watching on the videos, I have like the test terrain layout for, I've made some Eldari ruins because I was like, every ruined building in the 41st millennium is Imperial. The Orc ones aren't ruined, they're just Orcs. That's how they build. And so I was like, all right, ruined Eldar buildings, design some of them and have made that. And I think they've turned out pretty well. We'll find out over the weekend if they play well, but I'm pretty sure they should be. They're like, rather than being L's, they're like a quarter of an ellipse. And they're like blocking and nice and solid. Yeah, looks cool. There's like Eldar glyphs on there. That's like half my paragraph, team. We're still going. All right. So, yeah, I found myself onto the New Zealand WTC team, which I don't think I've announced on the show. So that's real cool. I was, so there was talks about it at NZTC a few months back, whenever I was last up there. And I was like, potentially keen, not sure about money, but then I decided, we'll just do it and we'll worry about the money, we'll make it work. And I got invited on. It's really cool. There are a couple more Christchurch guys. So John, local Bugs Terror, which is funny in a bit, and Francis, so those guys from Christchurch. That's cool. There's people to practice with down here. There's 3 from up north, Charlie, Nairi, and I'm really sorry for whoever I'm blanking on. And then we've also got a couple guys joining us from the UK, a dude James and the lovely David Gaylard, which is pretty cool. So I'm pretty happy with the team for like sort of being a bit opportunistic to be put together.
Congratulations, mate. That's awesome.
So that's that. And so the first thing I sent to the team group chat was the 2-button meme of John, the local guy who plays Bugs, of play something other than Bugs or kick the top player in whatever ranking metric Dave was top of at the time off of Tyranids. That was how I ended there.
I mean, David Gaylord played Admech beforehand, so he's going to play Admech, right? John doesn't have any other.
He's over on Demons now. He's like, can't play the Warriors, I'm off. So it worked out, easy peasy. Cool. And so the last thing, which I mentioned because there's a couple of funny points, is I've started seeing someone, which when I let the lovely group chat guys here know, like all 3 of them kicked like into wingman overdrive mode. It was really funny. So just shout out to the other 3 guys in the Frontiers for being fantastic. Related to that, she's heading up north over summer, so I signed up for the Kraken GT. So I'm going there in a few weeks. I think that's all the stuff going on with me. I got a couple other funny stories. Maybe
well, here she is now. She's joining us on the show.
No way.
Not really. No. I couldn't help myself.
On the show. Okay. No. So Ben, you joke about that, right? But like, we go to sit down for like to watch some random comedy skit while we're having some food, and like I see down in the corner of the YouTube recommended thing, the like Next Generation show. I'm like, oh, we've been found out. So she found this, and that's like, it's very funny.
There we go. So how are you going to break the news to her? So have you told her you're traveling up for a Warhammer event and then you're seeing her on the side, or is it you're traveling up for her then like, there's a Warhammer event on the side?
No, it was fine. So she said how she's going back up, and I'm like, I should jokingly said like I should see if there's any events or something. And she's like, well, there's going to be accommodation, and we look. I was like, oh, what is this? I was like, okay, cool, we're going. And it's terrible because I later worked out that like one of my flatmates who I go climbing with is up there. So like he's up for something else. So we're in Auckland at the same time. So we're going to have a reunion with half the last group of flatmates at the climbing wall at some point. I'm like, okay, cool. But that's got to be it. I've got to like limit the like other shenanigans I get up to and spend the rest of the time there. But it's fine. I've got like 5 days because flights worked out really nicely.
Happy days. Well, it's funny you joke that. That's so funny. Like the first date I had with my wife, like so when we were traveling to meet her, like I had it as a backup plan, like when I would meet her, I had a CS:GO tournament. There was like a CS:GO tournament in Sydney at the time, and I was going to go see it. If like the date just went terribly, I was going to go to the CS:GO tournament.
Oh, was it like long distance?
Yeah. So it's funny. Like, look, but you never know. Like, good things can happen, right, buddy? So
But this was almost like the opposite way where so first day went well, and then so like we had food and we're like, worked out somewhere to go next to go get a drink, and then later end up was talking about hobbies and stuff, and there's this moment of just like, is this really happening? Where like I'm explaining some random because I was showing pictures of models I'd done, right? And I was explaining what my converted Satan were. I'm like,
oh, for God's sake, was he really doing that? Oh,
she was
mate,
asking, all right? Like, I was like, hang on, what's going on? So anyway,
it's a trap.
No, it's anyway. So so thanks to the efforts from you guys.
Too good.
Okay. Should we move on to like actual content rather than like,
Oh well,
we might do a segment. We might do the next so skip the tournament one. Sam, you might line her up for a for an interview next week.
Yeah, there you go.
It's not as bad. Okay, it's not as bad as like Francis, who's on the WTC team, who like normally the guys that you know how like you got to earn brownie points to go to your events or whatever, right? Francis and Jay are so great. They're like, cool, we got an event. All right, send the baby off to the babysitter. Both of them go to the event and play.
That's the dream, right? That's the
Yeah,
dream.
those two are so good. And like, yeah, Francis made some comment about the like, oh, well, WTC's on my kid's birthday, but it's all right. 2-year-olds fly for free or whatever it is, or like under 2 flies for free. Turns out they're going off somewhere else, so they're just independent, like international holidays. But yeah.
Yeah, there we go. That's what you can say to the baby when it grows up. It's like, oh, for your second birthday, we took you to Belgium, like with a massive asterisk. Like, by the way, that's for WTC.
Yeah.
Like, I'm completely unrelated note, but
Yeah, I was asking, it's like, so you're gonna have kiddo on like a front pouch for the ultimate dad hammer while you're playing the singles? But no, apparently not. They're going somewhere else.
Oh, too good, too good. Well,
Yeah.
unfortunately, this is not a relationship advice show yet. I mean, maybe one day in the future, but like, we'll go around the corner.
Look, mate, we're starting low. We're starting with the basics here. Don't show on the first date pictures of Warhammer models. That is like, we're starting real like, I don't really think there's too much value in most of the community because most people would know that's not an appropriate thing to do. So hopefully tune in for the next episode. It might be better.
All right. There
Okay,
was
good.
like asking about hobbies and stuff or something, and it came up. All right, and there was interest. Okay, I worked that much out. Cool. Can we move on? How is someone else doing? I'm done being made fun of for my life choices over here.
Oh. Speaking of life choices, Ben Way, your haircut. Let's talk about that. No.
Well, I was just living that. I was living, living in denial. Well, no, to be honest, like everyone, the actual truth of it is that I actually used to have my head shaved a few times in my life before, and the last time was about 4 or 5 years ago. And when I was like, I'm going to do it again, she was like, I'm not ready for it. I said, I've barely got any hair on top. Like, there's no point in me having it. And she's like, I'm just not ready for it yet. I'm not ready for it yet. And I was like traveling home from playing a game, I think I was, or something like that. And I was just like, it's coming off. That's it. It's coming off. And so I just stopped in, quick buzz cut, and then came out.
To a hairdresser's rather than just like doing it.
No, because the one I've got at home, I'm missing all the attachments for it. So like I must have thrown them away or they've in a move or something like that. So I looked for it beforehand because I just do it myself, obviously, but I just wanted it done there and then. I was sick of it. And
you've got to hit up Manscaped, promo code Falcon.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's definitely living the dream. Just means I've got to up my hat game harder. That's all it is. Can't get that boulder out in the sun, So
yeah.
Absolutely
Dude,
not.
Copy Liam, 1 CP Solar Pulse.
There you go. But what's been happening with you locally? So obviously, other than IRL stuff. So what's been happening in 40K universe?
So I ran New South Wales team championships last weekend. Do we want to talk about that now, or do we want to just?
Ben, look, I already put the show off the rails. Let's go with it.
Yeah. So right. Let's do it. So basically, it was an 80-person 5-man team event. So most of the states, and not all of them, but a lot of the states in Australia host their own kind of team event. And I thought we'd do one for New South Wales this year. So, and hopefully it's going to be a thing that happened every year. So it was a 16 teams of 5 WTC format. So it was pretty fun. So all the maps pretty much identical. So it was really fun to get the, I think the real fun in it is getting like the locals and the teams, who don't really get an opportunity to play that kind of format. And we also have the national championships as well, ANZTC, which I ran earlier in the year. So not a lot of there's only 64 players that come to that with this year. So there's only 64 people out of all the players we have in Australia who get to play WTC format in a competitive event. So it was a really good opportunity for those guys to come along and learn some of the rules, feel out the terrain, feel the differences. It was only 5-man teams. Like obviously more would be better, but I think 5 is pretty much still keeps it, just enough, granular enough for it to be interesting, and enough that I can get multiple teams. So there's a bit more gradients in the ladder as well. So yeah, it was great. I think we had a lot of out of state people come. We had some couple of stacked teams. So yeah, it was a good day. We had Eric Luthuris and Matt Morrisoli bring a team each as well. And we had loads of locals, couple of Sam's boys came up for it as well. We had some just people from all over the state, and a couple of boys from South Australia too, which was crazy. So yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, fantastic.
Sounds
And,
good.
Yeah, fantastic. And for the sense that, so it's your second team event ever being run per se. So I know you TO'd the last ANZ Team Champs, the one you mentioned, where it was 64 people. How was that overall? So obviously a bit different in terms of 5-man teams versus 8-man teams. Like, how did you find running that in comparison? Like, what was some like learning experiences you had from your first like team event TOing compared to this one?
I think they're almost two different kettles of fish, really. I think with the 8-mans, because the level's higher in players, and it tends to be like, doesn't mean people necessarily know their rules better, but it tends to be like you've got to keep them to a higher standard. Where at the five rounds, there was a lot of the newer teams that if they just did one little tiny nuance that wasn't allowed in the WTC FAQ, I'd just remind them they can't do that again, and take it pretty easy on them when generally the people who are playing on the higher tables kind of already knew that, because they were like, a couple of them had actually won WTC this year. So didn't really have to watch them too much. I think that with things like, because we try and at the ANZTC this year, we tried to replicate WTC quite closely. The being me wandering around at the event just the other weekend, I could just make sure I'm keeping an eye on the tables. People could grab me. Where when we do ATC, try to do it mainly through the captains if we can, just to try and keep that kind of simulation. But obviously, because there's only ever like 6 to 8 teams on ATC because of each state. Don't tend to, don't have to be necessarily that strict. So I think the difference is where it was more the eight pairings take a lot longer, right? When there's 8 people, and I say a lot longer. Some of them, if they go to plan, they're very quick, But the 5-man teams is very much like it's just heaps more gradients in skill level of the 5-man teams, which I think was really interesting, and actually a couple of upsets, which was just awesome. Like people just playing out their skin, or people getting pairings right, or people just maybe buses doing better than they should, and which is, I guess, is kind of like similar to a team's narrative, but because there's different gradients in teams, and there's obviously 16, there's double the amount of teams with way different size skill gap, makes everything so much more unpredictable, and that was heaps fun. That was brilliant. That was my favorite part of it, I think.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah. It's all stories. Each team will have their own story throughout their event, like one thing that happened uniquely and stuff like that. And when I was looking for the roster, there was as you mentioned, there's a bunch of new people that were playing for I guess their first ever team events and stuff like that. And people I don't normally see at the singles events, they were there for the teams event, which is great. So it's good to see a bunch of more faces and people enjoying themselves.
Wondered, when you were saying how the pairings complexity, right, for 8-man versus 5s, the number of different permutations you can hit is ridiculously higher. I should do the maths quickly if someone else is talking for a bit in a bit. But because 5s, it's sort of there's a couple of things you're trying to avoid, right? Or we'll put this person. You can basically work out every single combination of if you put this person first or that or the other in a couple minutes, and go, oh yeah, well if we have and a bit of a map of if they put this person and you do this, I know what teams we had some of the times where we use a second defender to catch one of the last 3 things, and you can, but that's as far as you get for the little traps. And then 8-mans is the whole we've got to get this early so that you can pin that. And did you do 1 light, 3 medium, 1 heavy sort of table setup?
No, so we had exact replicas of the WTC maps.
Oh, cool. Oh, so, is this for the teams of 5, the New South Wales?
Well? Yeah, for that as well.
Nice.
So we used certain table layouts. So I just picked certain map numbers, and those maps carried on with the missions. So basically, something I did notice was obviously when you get the higher those kind of competitions you up, and you hear about WTC, ATC players keep their kind of, unless they're big facts which are army defining rulings they want on. They tend to be quite cagey and everything's quite forethought. Their contact with TOs and stuff like that. I did also find that because of the newer players at the five-man teams, we had newer teams, newer players in, giving them an WC FAQ was, I think, was quite a lot for some of them. And I don't mean like in a negative way. I mean quite a lot, as in like they were all over it when they were there, but was quite a lot when you tell them this is what we're doing. And
like it's a big document.
I had a couple of guys, like one dude, I won't mention his name, lovely guy, and messaged me at like 2:30 in the morning, and he'd already messaged me at like 11 o'clock, messaged me at 2:30 in the morning, and I woke up in the morning, I'm like, mate, you need to probably just go to sleep instead of like looking at this, because he went, you know, when you just overanalyze something and you tie yourself in knots rules-wise, through the dialogue being used and stuff like that, and you kind of tie yourself knots and you go, does that mean I literally can't do this basic rule? And then you say, no, that's not how it works. You're overanalyzing. This is what it means. And you go, oh, okay, and we had a bit of that, and it sounded like it was quite stressful for him at first. But I think like when I said, mate, don't worry, because I'll be there all the time if you've got a question about anything. And I said, once you actually realize when you start playing the game, halfway through your first WCFAQ game, you'll just notice it's the same game, but there's answers for stuff that you don't have. And he kind of relaxed him a little bit, and then he started playing. And after day one, he was like, none of that stuff that I asked you about's even come up or even needs to come up. And I'm like, no, it's fine. It's just there. Yeah, exactly. I said, it's just there for when, if it does, you can refer to that document. Do you know what I mean? And, you'll call me over, and because we're not, ANZTC or WTC, I'm going to like just take my time to explain it to you and tell you what happens. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be like, look at the FAQ, like I'm going to help them out with it and stuff like that. So, it's just not that I do that at ANZTC, but you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it just kind of like, it can be quite daunting. I think it's quite a daunting prospect for them. Yeah. But when they get into doing it, they love having the answers there for little things. Like not all of them are agreeable. Like we all know that, but that's the same with like all rules, right? Like nothing can suit you 100%.
Like there's things.
They love the maps. They love the maps. They love the terrain. And I tell you what though, like them, because obviously the first day it's like set up the terrain. That's a big job if you've never set up WTC terrain, because it's more of a mind. It's actually really simple. What you've got to do is like declutter it a little bit, because it actually only takes a couple of minutes to do once you have done it a couple of times, because you kind of know. But people, because it's all angles and having things at certain things, isn't it? Like, and it just flutters them when they have all this terrain, like loads of terrain on their table, and they're just like, I don't even know where to start. So I'll be like, go when you first get to your table, at the preamble at the beginning, I was like, when you first go to your table, make sure you just place the terrain roughly where it looks like it's meant to go on the table, and then you start from one bit and move across. And if you both do that, in about 3 or 4 minutes, you'll have it all set up. So,
or if there's like a sideboard, right, you just put everything off the table and you go like one piece at a time, put it in the right place.
I actually find that that's even harder, because personally, that's the way my brain works. I find it easier to have the other stuff there to kind of like, because you kind of complete it as you go, and then you kind of go, yeah, sweet, you're kind of done.
For sure.
And I always often find that you're really lucky to have too many tournaments that have actual sideboards to put all that terrain on, because they're generally the rafters, the team
ones.
That's
like if there's space, yeah.
I
mean, I've got the weird situation of I have templates to like set all my stuff out. The thoroughly over-engineered setup, which that's why I've got a table behind me, which I need to. I've laid it out. I'm like, cool, this is how I want the terrain. Now I got to model it. Then I can make the template, so I can set up like between rounds. But definitely glad I did that.
Basically, that's New South Wales. Yeah, go, Sammy. Sorry, mate.
No, you're right. So just for context for people who don't know, like what the hell's been talking about map packs and stuff like that. So basically, like all the terrain. So basically, each like dimension, so like a big grid, and like you'll measure out at one point what this L will go, where these containers will go, measure point by point by point, and you have like a grid measurement and see where you can actually place things, and they'll have all the objective markers and stuff laid out. So there's like 8 different tables, and so they all have varieties in terms of L's and like where the big L's, so the like big 3-story line site blocking ones and ones with windows and stuff like that. So people who don't know, that's what like Ben's referring to and how you measure those all out. And they're all, the WTC map pack is an amazing document. Like it's so well laid out, like there's visual representation, it's all gridded and very well laid out, but definitely very daunting for new players and unique if you haven't played it or played with it before.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. That was really good. It's so many hours went into making that. So many hours. You can just tell. And if they ever listen to this podcast, I appreciate you for the work you do, because even though I'm cursing you when I'm literally counting out like 196 small L ruins to put in my car to take with me, and that's just one terrain type. When I see them play on it, or when I play on it personally, it's totally worth it, and I love it. But yeah, that's basically New South Wales TC wrapped up. Aside from that, I've been recovering from New South Wales TC, and I've got a couple of
it, mate.
Yeah, all of a sudden we've suddenly got some events coming up. All of a sudden, poking out of nowhere. So got there's an RTT next weekend that I'm hopefully going to go to, and then after that we've got the Canberra one that Sam's running that I'm sure we'll be touching on. Which I'm going down. I'm taking a bit of terrain down for that, but I'm also managing to get 5 games in as well, so I'm pretty happy with myself there. And then I've got a local game stores invitational the week after that, and then I think a couple of weeks after that, I've got New South Wales Masters, which I'm kind of TOing and playing in. So yeah, some pretty. All of a sudden, I thought I'm kind of done from events for the year. Like even when we were messaging the other day, Sam, you were like, "Oh, you're glad to be done with events for the year." And I'm like, "Oh, it kind of all feels like I've just gotten back on again." Like all of a sudden, because I forgot about the invitational, forgot about the RTT, and then all of a sudden, all I could see was New South Wales TC. I needed the team tournament over. That's all I could see. I couldn't see past that. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, "Oh no!" So right in the busy time of work too. So unfortunately, but who cares? It'd be fun. It'd be fun.
Do what needs to be done.
Yeah, that's all right. Still got to get my toy soldiers happening.
At the end of it,
it's still got to happen.
To stick with the Thanos theme of the episode, at the end of it, the old did you do it? Yes. What did it cost? Everything. You're gonna have like a tired, defeated Ben.
But we all worth it. So fantastic.
Alrighty.
Yeah, it sounds like a great time, and go have a good event, and I'm sure there'll be hopefully many more to come from yous in the future. And
yeah, hopefully. No, it was really good. It was really fun. It was just an awesome. You know what it's like. Team tournaments are the best, right? So it was just awesome.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and the banter and the cheering people on and all that.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, fantastic. And yeah, as Benj mentioned, so I guess I'll recap a bit by myself. So what's happening with myself? So this weekend hosting. Yeah, it's all right. They're hosting so the ACT, so my regional masters event. So it's happening this weekend. So I guess the top 16 locally.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So TOing that one and helping facilitate that one. Then still like a little regular RTT along the side. So hosting that one, and then as Ben mentioned, 2-3 weekends from now is the my first ever 2-day. So first ever 2-day and first ever ITC event. So TOing that one. So it'd be 32 players, like sold out ridiculously quick, and no one's dropped yet. So it's been good, and Benny's helping with that to train and stuff like that. So exciting times for that, and it'd be good for the region to have a 2-day event again. So exciting times for that, and then. Yeah, sort of not playing any Warhammer. I'm just busy doing adult real life stuff in terms of moving house and stuff like that. So all that fun jazz to happen, and just getting ready for Uprising in Jan.
Did you buy a place, Sam? Did you buy a place?
No. Wait, moving place, and then before, or I guess a bit of what Ben was alluding to. So moving to Queensland in Jan. So exciting times ahead, and big move. So like for context, that's like a 13-14 hour drive for. Yeah,
I was going to say you've got to add context because, I
guess the I don't know, New York. Maybe it's a bit longer than that, but like New York traveling down to Florida, maybe, or like
that comment just did me there. Did you see it? That's Carl. That's my mate from New Zealand. So
for people listening, someone just commented, Ben looks like the War Master. Oh dear, man, it's been too long since we've had one of these. We're just all over the show.
Too good. So, but yeah,
dear.
good times ahead. So,
Congrats
exciting.
on your 32 player thing selling out, by the way, Sam.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Nice work, the 2-day. I'm
Thing is,
looking
you've
for a
almost
2-day
got to
booking.
fend some of them off. Fend some of them off at 32 players. You know,
Yeah.
you're probably saying he's probably let 32 buy a ticket and then said no to another 50. You know.
Yeah, I have less for this event for mine. Turns out when you have like a bunch of uni students that go along to your event at uni, but you put it in the middle of exam weeks, there's some people that can't make it. Whoops. Anyway.
Oh well, but yeah, yes, as Ben mentioned, that like 30 players that sold out super quick, and there's like already 12 on the waiting list, and there's a couple of messages asking, "Is there going to be more room for people?" And like, happy to travel if it expands. I was like, "Oh, just no, not for the first event," and like it would just be too much. So, but it's good, exciting time.
32's nice, especially for your local area getting their first 5-rounder. I think keeping it nice and small keeps it local. Be good.
And there's still
so
some
5
big
rounds,
dogs.
32 is the perfect number, right? Like for
Exactly, it is perfect Swiss. Yeah. So there'll be one true undefeated. So, and there's still some big dogs in Benny Way coming down and to
Are you playing?
No, I'm strictly TOing. Absolutely strictly TOing. So, so strictly TOing, and it'll be good times. It'll be good times indeed. So, yeah, and then
not sure what I'm going to bring yet.
Wait and see. So list subs a week and a half away. Anyways,
we'll talk right? Jeez,
so. Yes. Dude, YOLO White Scars.
YOLO White Scars. There we go.
I got to decide what I'm taking to the Kraken GT.
Yeah. Anyways,
and mine for this weekend. Anyway,
enough tangents.
Let's talk about some events, right?
Yeah. So we'll quickly recap. Unfortunately, sorry for all people watching the YouTube video back of watching us live. We don't have any actual pictures, but so recently, I guess around Australia and also internationally, there's been a bunch of events. Shout out to the Icelandic crew. They recently had their Ice Out GT, so that happened this past weekend. So shout out to them. So we obviously interviewed them a couple of weeks ago. They recently had that, so they went well.
Awesome.
Then in Australia, we had the Decked Out Gaming GT in Adelaide, South Australia. So shout out to those boys. Had a big 5-rounder, 2-day event. So and a bunch of people attending. And then
shout out to the South Australian boys. Amazing community down there. So good on you, lads.
Absolutely, shout out to them. And then I guess in Queensland, there's a big, actually 50-player RTT called October in Queensland. So and I knew Josh McGowan took out that one. So
big Josh.
Yeah, with Votan taking it up, and then good old Denise of Normal Blokes podcast came second with Towse. So good for him.
Josh was playing Demons.
Oh, Demons. Was it Demons? Sorry. I want to say someone played. Okay, doesn't matter. Anyway.
He'll be so angry he said that as well. So good.
Are they letting proxied or converted Votan, or is it like starter box only? Just
I think also, as Ben Way mentioned, it might have been Demons. I want to say it was Votan.
It was Demons. It's definitely Demons.
Okay. So maybe put it in as a joke. Anyways,
no, it's good. It's great. It's great. He said that. I'll be happy. He'll love that. But I think they were just doing the box too. I think I remember one of the TO's posts from a month ago. So I think they were just doing box stuff. I think that's like the general standard, right? Most people are just doing the box stuff. Like
it seems like it, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then I guess in the chat we got Pint Hammer 8-man RTT at the pub in Wellington 2 weeks ago. Demons took it out. There we go.
Sam, that's Pint Hammer, dude.
A Pint Hammer, bro.
Pint Hammer, whatever's going on. There you go. Apologies. And then also in New Zealand we had Telecom. So yeah, Canberrans.
It's even worse. Canberrans. I'll say Canberrans.
We had KellyCon in New Zealand. It was like a 3-man, so 12 lots of 3-person teams, so 36-person team tournament. Happening in Christchurch, I know. And Alec, mate of
I think Alec, John, and Rob Irons took that out, I believe.
Nice.
With their like team description or like their team. Alec was asking what he should run for his list, and it's like something like good enough to be reasonable, but fun enough to like not get. I can't remember what it was, but yeah. So it was a guy from Dunedin, which is like 4 hours south of here. He put it on, like came up, ran it. I can't remember what he was doing for terrain. He had some nice prizes and sponsorship, and like was really organized. I should take notes. I'm not going to. But yeah, so it was like. Some of the days it was singles 1,000 points, and then it was like a teams event or something, like one of those sort of cool, like play with your mates. So not the traditional team format thing, but yeah.
Yeah, cool. Oh, and there was a bunch of events around the road. So unfortunately, sorry,
Do we have?
couldn't cover them all. But if you guys have your event would like to highlight, please let us know, and we'll definitely try our very
Yeah.
best to highlight on the
Was-
show. So,
Yeah, let us
Sam-
know. That'd be awesome.
What was it? Because we did the Malaysian hardcore, that one. Has that happened?
yes,
Can
that
we
happens.
shout that
And,
out? It's not in the notes.
yeah, and Ash C. So she, the person we interviewed on the show, she came second overall. So she went 5-0. Just lost on battle points differential. So she took it with her Pennington engines and Paragon wall sits and just showed up what Valorous Heart can really do. So definitely shout out to those lovely people there. So great event.
Sorry,
so
so that was it Kuala Lumpur? Am I remembering that right? And it was
no, Purujaya, Malaysia. So it was not exactly Kuala Lumpur. It was probably close to KL, but not exactly. So,
yeah.
Anyways.
I know it was one of them is the commonplace and the other one's not. But yeah, so there's if you want to hear a bit more context for that, we did an interview with Ash C and another person whose name I'm blanking on, local to them a couple of weeks back.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. So yeah, if you want to have a listen, there you go. Get the secret tech and the insider knowledge. So happy days. And so we got a bunch of questions from the Discord. So if you are part of the Discord and want to ask us questions, and people joining us live, if you have any questions for us three that you want to ask, let us know. We'll definitely be sure to shout them out. One of the first ones we have from Lucas DeOrk, one of the hosts of the next Best in Tabletop Next Generation. He asks, why are orcs the best? I mean, maybe Towse, do you have an answer? Why are orcs the best?
Dude, orcs are the best. Like, genuinely, they're my answer for who are the good guys in 40k, because they don't have any grudges. They're just totally impartial. They just want to have a good time. And to orcs, there's the flowchart, right? As you fighting and can you add the more Daka or more spiky and then the Warg thing, or as you rockin' or as you racing, they're just all they're about is having a good time. They don't have a grudge against anyone. They just want to have a good old fight, and because fighting's fun, right? So they're trying to be friendly with everyone by having a good old scrap. Yeah. No, orcs is the best. That's the quick summary of why. Ben, anything to add? Oh, Ben's busy or something. Sam, anything to add?
Well painted orcs are the best.
Yeah.
Well painted orcs are pretty cool.
If someone's got a Goths army where there's all the checks, there's a guy locally that has a bunch of Goths with checks on most of the armor and stuff. It's just wow, it's so
so good.
Yeah.
Why are orcs the best? I mean, Warhammer Fantasy, obviously. Fanatics, Manglet Squigs, do love catapults. That's why they're the best.
Those orcs are the best. The goblins.
Those orcs are the best.
Yeah. Not 40k orcs.
I mean, if you've never cast Foot of Gork and just absolutely destroyed some people, that's if you haven't cast Foot of Gork and just destroyed some people, I mean, you haven't had a good old time. And then having Savage Orc boys just run in, and then Iron Jaws and AOS, I mean, they just smashing and bashing and having a grand old time, and the Maw Crusher just doing a good old job. But yeah, in 40k, let's be real.
I just want to explain my my visual joke for the listeners, where I remove myself from the stream when these guys started to talk about fantasy orcs. Not about it.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. So, but yeah, in 40k, I mean, orcs are really cool. I like orcs. Nothing wrong with orcs. So it's a good old time. All about it. One day I'll collect them. One day, have my pink-skinned orcs with purple cloth.
Oh no!
Yeah.
No, the correct green to pink color swap conversion is the greater clean one. That is the acceptable color swap. No pink orcs, dude. Out of here.
Pink orcs are cool. I like pink orcs. They're fun. Pinks of color which should be used more often, I say. But yes.
That's fine. Emperor's Children will take over. You'll have your wish, Sam.
There you go.
Yeah.
Fills my meditating heart as well. No.
Oh boy.
All right, cool. Next question. So a similar avenue. So what is your favorite sub-faction? Give me one based on the rules. So it's your 40k rules, and one based on the lore. So go with you, Benny, if you have one.
Yeah, I've got one for lore. Because I knew this one straight away because I saw this earlier. So it is without doubt the Bladed Cog from Gene Stealer Cult. Now their whole story is they live on a Mechanicus world. So they rise up and they like are taking over mechanicums and stuff like that. So I like them because it's like they're a bit different than the others. Instead of it being like Imperial worlds, it is an Imperial, but it's like the mechanicum. I'm going to read you a little excerpt, all right? Okay, this is story time.
He's got the book there, even.
Yeah, I'm telling you, So let me just find. So the cult of the bladed cog now seeks to blend the stuff of the alien with that of the machine. Cybergized bodies are common. Their tortured anatomies are much metal, wire, and hydraulics as they are alien chitin and fused human bone. So if that's not the coolest thing ever, I don't even know what is. So that's easily my favorite. And I didn't actually even see the rules one, but I think that in terms of
Dude,
rules,
I'll do my rules one. Then you can
do your
work
rules
out
one.
your rules
I'll have a
one,
think.
and
Yeah,
I'll work
all
out my law while you do.
That's
Okay, so
good.
my rules one just has to be 8th Imperial Knights House Crest, because I had a good old time with that subfaction running the Pure Knights. I switched to Free Blade Lance at the end, but like that was my my up and coming sort of list. That's had a lot of fun games with that. Sam, Crash Knights.
Yeah, that was a thing that happened for sure.
Oh dear. The classic like Headsman's Mark 3 damage heavy stubber against other knights back when. Yeah. Anyway, that's definitely my favorite one for the rules. And like the rerolls to hit, exploding sixes. It was good all around. And then like the new book comes out and it's just look how they massacred my poor boy. As all I can think with them. It is very tragic.
Fair enough.
What about you, Sam?
Yeah, I guess for me, so I have to think a bit for the rules one, but the law one, I think the closest one that came to me was Night Lords. Night Lords are my favorite CSM faction. I just love the aesthetic. I love Conrad Kurz. Like, yes, he's an emo boy, but I love him. It's super cool to me. Like, I love that aesthetic and the look and things and stuff. And I love, I guess, a bit of the lore behind it and the meaning and history. But man, on the tabletop, they are terrible. But that's okay. Well, they're not. You can make some edge cases, but they're not the best, and they haven't had their time in the sun on the tabletop. But I love the lore and the sort of.
I love their lore too.
Yeah. So, and I guess rules wise, funnily enough, I think current Behemoth Nids are pretty close to what I love. Like +1 strength, being able to fight on death, and just putting some chonky things in seems pretty good. I don't know. I don't really have any other ones. That's the closest, I guess. I know Artisans of Flesh with Thick City list was pretty fun and obnoxious, but I don't know. I think Behemoth right now, and just the +1 the wound spell, it's sort of my jam. I love that melee trading and just going in and chonking some stuff. So I know early concepts of the original list had Screamer Killers of Behemoth and having a grand old time, but sadly they never eventuated. So, but yeah, what about you, Benny? What about your favorite one based on rules?
I don't know. I'm too scatty and too much borderline ADHD to be able to pick one of those. But I do. There's a lot of them that I like the rules. Like I look at them and go, that's cool rules, but I'd never use them in game. Like there's like High Fleet Hydra is one of them. For sure. I like the idea of using that psychic power and just going really crazy with psychic heavy nids, which is a thing. I love the rules of like the Pauper Prince and GC Occult. I do love Bloody. I've always loved Bloody Rose. They're a bit boring, but they're still just good, aren't they? Right? You know what you get with them every time. I love Armored Lady as well. There's just so many. There's so many I could pick. You know, there's even armies rules that I look at it and go, God, I'd love to play that army, but I just couldn't bring myself to get the models. You know what I mean? So
yeah, fair enough. What about you, Towsy? What's your final answer for?
Dude, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to work it out. There's a few like that I think are pretty cool. I don't know, maybe not familiar enough with the lore to like know super duper well. Like,
to be fair, you don't really have factions with great lore. Let's face it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
that was
so
just more of a shot firing shots at you there, to be honest. But
yeah, that's pretty fair. Well, if we're gonna go on that where you're like roasting my lore, maybe House Corvax, the like where Bellacor's just like House Raven. Yeah, I like this. I'm gonna just yoink your planet real quick. And so suddenly they're like, well shit, I guess we're chaos now because like the first demon prince is just teleported our planet someplace else. At least our knights
quite
can
like
run
the
through
lore.
walls.
I quite like the lore of like the Free Blades and how they come together, like knights wise. Like of not like there's not really lore because obviously it's not what it's about, but the kind of how the Free Blades form a force. I think that's really cool. Like it is just like medieval times, like just mercenaries. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Oh, bunch of good answers
All right.
there. So
That's a
let us know
question.
what yours is either. So cool. Next one. So what's the benefit of having a team/group of people to talk 40K? So I guess I'll direct this one straight to you, Benny. So I know obviously you're part of Grapple Factory Ethos, so one of the teams up in Queensland per se, with some really good notable players there. So what's the benefit of having that sort of team? Obviously, from ITC rankings, like you get some points per se, but what's the benefit of having that team or group of people to talk 40K for you?
I think it's nice to have a healthy conversation about something and finding a group of people who can either share the same feelings or emotion you have towards a certain faction or army, or they can talk cerebrally and kind of unemotionally about the game is really nice. I enjoy that when we talk about the game, like being pointed out on stuff that I maybe haven't seen not only in a faction but in a game, and maybe pitfalls I could, or different, I'll talk about how a game went and they can say, well, I wouldn't have played it like that, like I don't, and stuff like that. So that's pretty interesting. It's great for just sounding off on list ideas, basically just put your list in there and they tear it apart or something like that. And, it's always really good for that. I think anything that just promotes talking about 40K and a positive attitude is always going to be beneficial as a player, but also you're gaining another group of friends out of it, So that was another perk for me, is just there's another group of mates. And plus, we all have to stop Nick from getting really stupid haircuts anyway. So we've all got to step in and give him a bit of a slap. So, and make sure he doesn't get silly haircuts. So I hope he listens to this. Yeah. So that'd be great.
Too good. Towsy, what do you think the benefits are if you have some?
So this is to talk 40K about. This is not having a group of 40K people to talk to, right? Because we went over at the start of the show how having a group of mates from 40K can be awesome. But no, in terms of group 40K groups of people, you can be like, hey, if you're worried about how your painting's going to be or something, right? How do you think this looks? You can get advice on all hobby sort of things if you're less sure on that. You can, sort of like how Ben touched on, you can have people as a sounding board of hey, I'm thinking of this. Is there something obviously wrong? Or sometimes you can have a hive mind of rules of hey, does anyone know where this rule that I'm pretty sure is a thing, but I don't know which, document FAQ, codex FAQ, rare rules interaction, data slate, I don't know, previous edition is this rule that I think exists from. Can give second opinions, can call you out for if you've got a bias or something cute. I'm gonna call out John here at the start, because when the Levy Warriors build came out first, right? He was like, oh, I don't know, the Warriors can still sort of just die or whatever, and I'm not sure about taking that many. I'm like, dude, they're real tough, real cheap. Just take a bunch, run them, and because he was used to 8th ed bugs, which is codex double activation and terrible data sheets, to now 9th ed bugs, which is codex data sheets and holy, they still need nerfing. Yeah. I don't know if they do or not, but it took a lot of iterations. Sounding board stuff, you can, if you're feeling lethargic, right, and you're you're not feeling it with 40K, you can borrow stuff. You can be like, hey, I want to try run different army just for shits and gigs, to do something different, right? There you can get games. Yeah, there's a whole bunch there's not that many downsides. One about the only ones I can think of is things you need to watch out to make sure things don't get echo chambery and group thing. But if you are aware of that, it's just, there's so many benefits.
Absolutely. Echo, all that, again, not like an echo chamber, but yeah, there is many benefits. And it's good just to have some people that sound off, as everyone's just mentioned. So on to the next one. So Do you think more singles events should implement the 20-0 system to better differentiate wins? So the 20-0 system being obviously the traditional WT system. So based upon how much you score and the difference between what your opponent scores, you get a variance. So every 5 points, so 11-9 would be like you win by 5 points. So like 75-70 be the final score. Do you think it's a better way to do it other than, I don't know, whether some other metrics are used? What do you think, Towse?
My gut feeling is I don't actually think that 20-0 should be the system to differentiate wins. Maybe I'm wrong and I haven't thought about it in like the way that the 20-0 system, because then you've got more granularity in matchmaking rather than just like win path, right? Because if you do that, then you're playing just some people, and some people can have easier paths. Because the whole argument with like battle points as a tiebreaker is some people might just face someone, like they might get an easier run so they can get high battle points, or like high differential if it's done by differential, and then like it's hard for someone to catch them. 20-0, maybe it's got the benefit of, if you do that first round, you'll face someone else who had a good run, and then. But I don't think so. I think it would be better to just have the standard win-loss, whatever, and then maybe have, it might be an option that I'm forgetting, but maybe have the differential like in your wins and losses. Like say if you win your first game by 20 points, your next game by 30, and then you lose one by 7, you've got like you'll be plus 47 if I'm remembering the numbers I gave right.
43.
Plus 43. I can't yeah, anyway, I'm trying to remember. But yeah, you have like that as your like score as a second or third tiebreaker. That feels to me as a gut like it might be better. I don't know. What do you guys think? Tell me I'm wrong.
Sure. Benny, what do you think?
I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, Towse, but this is something actually I feel pretty strongly about. And it might not be a popular opinion. I don't think it works in singles at all. I think that part of the reason teams is so good is because it's different than singles. Why make them the same? That's my main comment. Is like I love singles because you can have 1 point wins, and I think if you're going to scrap for 1 point wins, you deserve that win, right? I know when people say, you know, oh look, I hate losing by 1 point or winning by 1 point. It's like I get that, but all you're doing if you port that straight over in.
Oh, have we lost Ben? I think we've lost Ben.
Unfortunately, lost Ben. You are back. You're back.
Ben's
I'm back.
You're back.
I'm back.
Yes,
maybe.
All good.
Right. Cool. Okay. So you're creating.
You port that over.
So if you port that over, then you're just creating a 4 point differential is 1 point. So you're asking newer players to be like, I know you've got that score, but you have to change that score into a different score. So that score doesn't matter. So all those points you're talking about, so everything's counted in 4 points. So anyway, that's just me. Like I don't like that bit of it. Now, I think that it makes people play 40K a certain way. If you want to win an event, especially if you want to win an event with lots of people in it, which you can say that for any event, but at least there's 1 point granularities and the chance of upsets. If you're doing 20-0s, you're either drawing loads or you're getting blowouts. Like, you know, like, which is the same as any 40K tournament. But I think that I really like, so Innes did an episode, bonus content, Stat Check, and I recommend checking that out. The reason I bring it wasn't Innes actually, it was when they had the German captain, it wasn't Anthony, it was Innes and
Typhus from Poland. Yeah, with captain of Team Germany.
That's right. So when he got in, so they've done this certain middle way, which I can kind of get behind. All right, because it's kind of like they've made a compromise in the middle there, and they've made it so because they said that their player feedback was based on like the people who weren't. So like there's 8 people in one country going to play that event. So why should the rest of the 100, 300, 2,000, 5,000 people have to play a system that just suits the top like 2%, 1% of players? And the compromise they made was, instead of it being like you have the draw interval where it's the 10-10, 4 points, right? Which is the current WGC. They just made it so it was 0-0. So like you only drawed if you're the same, exactly the same. So if you're 1 point above, you took the 11-9. Do you know what I mean? That I can get
Yeah.
behind. That I can get behind because I don't. Why take granularity of the game away from singles, which almost needs more granularity because there's more teams there's more teams as in players as in inputs on
'cause
BCP.
if you've got an
No, wait. Participating in the actual tournament. Do you know what I mean? Like, why would you take that granularity away and add something which is blocky and chunky to define a singles event? Like, I don't understand that. I understand it if you want to practice for WTC, that's great. Like, if we were to do it in Australia, I would propose to separate some events and make them WTC like training events, but not the whole country. Like, not the whole country's worth of events. Like, you know what I mean? That's just where I'm at. And I'm sorry for saying that, Kelsey, but I just wanted to finish what I say. Then you can go on your tangent about it.
No, you're good. I was just quickly going to say to your point on granularity, right? Because in a singles event, you've got 90 points of variance, right? Because you generally assume the 10 points of pain, right? You got 90 points. In WDC, teams of 8, you've got 160, right? Because you've got 8 lots of 20-0. So you've actually got, like, in a teams event, like the WDC format, you've got more granularity than a singles because you've got 8 instances of 20.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And the singles, so to your point, yeah. Just really quickly, I'm annoyed that, like, if you need to win by like 51 or 41 or whatever to get like a 20 or a 40, just like have the middle bracket be like, if you win by 5 points, that's like an 11-9 rather than you need to win by 6. That's my gripe. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
All right, Sam.
Think, it's interesting. I do like it in a sense of like differentiating when there's like a true like no undefeated per se. I think it's a nice differentiator to say, look, you have bigger wins per se. There might be a better way to just differentiate things. I think that's a nice.
That's a good point. Yeah,
but the also issue that does create, and I think we'll lead on to the next question, is that it can make some feel bad moments, like especially with newer players. Like if there's a shark there who's trying to get the event win, like they're going to go for that 20-0. They're going to be pedal to the metal, go. Whereas sometimes in a normal battle point system, like you don't care what your opponent scores. Like, yeah, score 80 points or whatever. Just you take the foot off the gas a bit and like let them sort of play their points. So, and like it's a hard one. So I think it can be useful when it's not a true undefeated, but maybe otherwise it's an interesting one. And I guess, as you said, preparing for WTC makes a lot of sense. Or preparing for the next team event gets a lot of sense to get that information. But maybe day-to-day singles, who knows? It's an interesting conversation to have. And I guess there's no true right answer.
That's such a good point, though, about like, like when there's a player mismatch, if it's a differential system, then like you're incentivized to like shoot people off of objectives and make sure they get no primary or whatever.
Exactly, and I can definitely make the argument with the 5 round when you have a 5 round and it's like 70 players that's what the players are trying to do anyway because they need to get those close 100s. So you could argue that it's just as well. Do you know what I mean? Like that's what I was trying to say in mine as well. Is like my point when I made that was kind of mute because you could argue it was the same in a different format.
It's just like a trade-off.
How I feel about it, though, Towse. Yeah.
It's a trade-off because if you're trying to have your tie breaks because like obviously it's not always going to be feasible to have the single person who's won all their games because of just like time and venues and sizes and whatever. So like if you're trying to do it by battle points, right, by just like how many scored in the game, you have the Necron player win. But right, like that's one thing. And then if you get a good matchup or if you play someone that say gives up kill secondaries that you win with an army that struggles or whatever, right? Then some people have a benefit that way and it'll benefit some people. And whereas if you have one that's differential based, then it's like if you play someone and you're able to like demolish them, that's good. But if you play someone like Necrons or Sisters in the new mission pack, right, where some of those are just like there's a real flaw to how low of a points they can score and you need to have like the right list or matchup like for teams, right? Where because teams in pairing, if it's like a Necrons list and you've got something that's good to go into it, then you can go for the big differential against the high scoring one, yada yada yada. And in singles, so you can have some people winning on the tie break because they happen to match into someone that they gave up a bunch of points or something, right? Versus like the opponent game win percentage, I think, which Anthony on like not the most recent but the one before episode of Stat Check said that in one of the GW Opens, I think he was like cheering on his hero round 1 opponent because it's like, all right, dude, let's go. I need you to win your game so that you've got a higher win percentage so I can hop into the like top bracket cut. Like all of them have weird benefits and cons and stuff, right? Like there's never going to be a perfect system.
Yeah, and then it's a whole other topic that like you use that as a first placing metric. So someone who gets 420 but then loses 020 will, in placing metric, beat someone who wins 5 12 to 8s. Like sometimes it works, right? That's right.
Yeah. No, it's 80
that's
versus
right.
60.
Yeah, 60.
Your maths
60
works,
yeah,
Sam.
so,
We're good.
There we go. So that's a little interesting one. So in the singles event, someone who wins 5 games, all 5 games, should they place higher than someone who gets 4 big wins and another big loss? So it's an interesting one.
Dude,
so,
how else is an X and 1 going to win events in Scotland?
It's a good question. Good question. So, anyways, on to the next one. So, this is a bit of a longer-winded question, but we will go through it. So, you are hosting an RTT that's designed for new players to get into the hobby. So, people first time attending an event, and people to try and encourage people attending local events. Should you ask your other players to tone down the list and build more balanced list in order to be accommodating? It's a tough one. So I guess I can start off first if you like. It's an interesting one. I think if the strict purpose is to build community, to build lists and stuff like that. So and noting obviously with that like a 20-0 system which encourages you to absolutely smash. I think it makes sense and like just tell people, look, it's an RTT, it's a 1-day event. This is not gonna, and this is like considering maybe sometimes they're not ITC ranked events, so they're not getting points or anything like that. It's like, look, it's just a 1-day event. We're encouraging people to get into the hobby, to play games. Just relax, take your time a bit. But it's an awkward conversation. It's interesting. Like you can never really tell people. You can sort of encourage it per se and like keep the direction. Like, look, this is what the event is designed for. This is what you're supposed to be doing. Take that in mind. But it is an interesting conversation and a bit of a hard one to make. What do you think, Towse?
Yes. So hang on, sorry, I had something in blank for a sec. I don't think it's worth trying to tone down the lists. My first few thoughts would be something along the lines of like, if you're really trying to help newer people get in, because to some extent that's like I've had to think about that with my events, right? Where like I've got preset terrain that I wanted to be good for things, rather than say player plays, which is another learning curve. That's a whole thing which it's not worth going into. But like have nice symmetrical terrain, which is nice for new people. As far as toning lists down, probably wouldn't suggest that because that's like the compy system and gets like fuzzy. You could do something that's more objective, where like if you have attended 2 local events or something like that, or a local event before, or done some absolute like metric that you can determine, then you're required to bring a fully painted army or something like that, and like that means it's less likely to be thing, or bring something you've taken to an event before, or I don't know. You come up with some criteria to make sure, look, cool, you're going to face things that look nice and people aren't going to be like badly painted the first bandwagon sort of stuff, right? If that's happening. Whereas then you maybe let some of the newer people be like, cool, the new people can show up, they will definitely get their 10 battle ready, even if they don't have all the stuff painted, because we want to help people get into the hobby, or like see if you can ask around, offer for things to come in. And then I'll try and have some sort of incentive. I don't know if you can do this with BCP or other pairing software, like, but have a bit of a soft score where it's like, did your opponent help with the rules or things like that? There was it the Ratcon guys, Sam, that the from Ballarat, where they had like the bingo of like the nice opponent bingo, and it was something
Tasmania.
like, oh, it's Tasmania, right? Yeah. And it was, so they had the thing of like your opponent corrects a rule or something like that, right? Like I reckon doing things like that, so just things where there's incentives to like have opponents be really nice and things like and that sort of deal. Maybe have some random prizes that can help for like for if people are newer. I feel like those are better things. Like have soft incentives to like, if people want to do well, but there's going to be new players at the event, they're incentivized to try and like be a good opponent to the new players, rather than like force them to take weird lists, because that seems messier and might not even help.
Yeah. What do you think, Benny?
I just nearly got mute. Right. Okay.
Hey.
I think if like it's all in your intent of the tournament. So the question reads, if you're hosting our team designed for new players to get into the hobby and attend local events, I think you should when you open it up, because you'll have generally in every community, there's people who play a lot of 40k. You should just like encourage the new players to get in, and then you can fill it with the others. But like I think if like you're going to know the personalities that come, and if they're going to bring a really, really crazy list, just maybe you can approach them beforehand and say, hey, I want you to come because I want you to, show them what the community is all about and help them out because you're a good player. But could you perhaps like not bring the double harpy? Could you just bring like one and then just bring this? Do you know what I mean? And just make a suggestion to them. If they're coming for that arty tip, generally, if they're a good player and they're still bringing, you just ask them to tone it down a bit, they're probably going to win anyway, right? Do you know what I mean? So I don't think it's about like measuring that. Like I think if you make that statement of intent, you don't have to like commit to upholding it, but you've just definitely got to keep an eye on it. If you've built it to be that, you've got to make sure you nurture it through that stage and make sure it actually ends up like a new player event, not just be like this is designed for new players and then just let the list fly into BCP, lock them, let everyone see them, and then just turn up on the day, and then you've got like people bringing some real smash lists. So I think it's like there's got to be a little bit of due diligence there just to make sure it happens. But Towse had some great ideas too, and I think the most important thing you should do for a new player event is not overcomplicate it. So like the soft scores thing is a great idea. I think like if you want to make it about like those players, you do one you make the prize support for first and second, or if you do a third as well, make that pretty minimal, but make the best sports the best one. Make the wooden spoon the really funny one, put a bit of extra effort into that. Do you know what I mean? And stuff like that. Like for the New South Wales TC, I knew there's going to be a lot of newer teams. So I actually got Wooden Spoon has actually got a medal. Do you know what I mean? Because I wanted it to be like, this is, and they got like a free set of dice and stuff in there. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe incentivize a lucky door prize in there as well. And maybe just shift your prize support focus off to congratulating the winners so much. Obviously, if it's a new tournament and you've got a guy who's never played a tournament before and he goes 3-0, like he deserves a prize. What a legend. But make sure you're looking after the other guys as well. And I think just showing them it's very inclusive. You don't just have to be up the top to get all the good stuff happen to you.
Dude, I'm just a fan of there being a wooden spoon prize anyway. Which reminds me, I need to go buy another literal wooden spoon to be my trophy for mine.
I did wooden spoon. I did sawback, which is the highest scoring person on the lowest placing team. I did the destroyer, who's like the highest battle points. And I did dead weight, which was like the lowest scoring person on the highest placing team. So like you've got there's a bit of bants there, right? So you've got to make sure that like you just want to make sure to keep it lighthearted, and make sure it's like something cool they win. So it's just a bit of fun, right? Like I think like in some sort of competitions you could be taking like if some sort of personalities might take that the wrong way, but I know the kind of players I have come to my events, so I knew they wouldn't mind that. Plus, it's a free little prize, right? For a prize for like kind of just playing, So
those are good. Other things like a snake-eyed god prize of like if you snake a CP reroll ones into ones, you get a spot prize of something, or like you tally up who's done the most of them, and then they win like a new set of dice at the end. Just funny stuff like that can be really good. Yeah.
Absolutely. A bunch of good ideas there. So, yeah, some things to consider for sure. So, we've got a couple more questions. Sorry. So, Towsey, so obviously you announced you're part of the New Zealand WTC team. So, what are you looking forward to most, and how will your team prepare for it, you think? So, obviously, got, I guess, members in 3 big distinct locations. So, obviously, I guess we interact with each other there, and some people overseas. So, how do you think you guys will interact and prepare for, I guess, what is your inaugural WTC for Team New Zealand?
Yeah, so as far as prep, like right now, I think it's just sort of be flexible. We've chosen a team of people that can get along, can be flexible, like can make it there is what I meant. I hope and assume we can get along as well, but no, thus far it's been great. I mean, reasonably early and relaxed at the moment. But we'll see what happens because we don't even know what edition we're going to be playing yet, right? So it's just like work on playing games, get into some leagues, things like that. We've got a good bunch of connections around different places, so just look to have practice events, stuff like that. Yeah, so we haven't had like a super thorough discussion because obviously first time round where there's not as much like infrastructure in place and things. I imagine we'll have like pretty reasonable expectations. I think we've got a good set of players, so like we can we try to respectably, I would imagine, but like just go in with a pretty open mind, go and learn. If that makes sense, is that a reasonable answer for the prep side of
for
things?
sure. And it sounds like
Yeah.
obviously in the lead up to the event, so you'll have the ANZ team champ, so Australia New Zealand team champ. So in May each year, basically, so each region will have their top 8 players or 8 selected players to represent their state territory, and they compete in the 8-man WTC format team. So I'm sure for this North and South Island New Zealand teams, there'll be some good practice there, and I'm sure you guys will work it out. So do you know who's the team captain or team lead for that event? For you guys, or
WTC or ANZTC?
WTC.
Nairi Wilson. She's the captain.
Yeah, sweet.
I think Steve Joel is nominally like the captain of Team New Zealand, but like that's because he did the sign up through the system for like registering the first captain, I think, and so he's sort of passing the reins to Nairi. And yeah. As far as ANZTC, I'm not sure, but I know the 3 guys from Christchurch are intending to go to ANZTC as an example. So yes, that's something we'll do for prep. And obviously having people in different locations, we can have like some practice games and things like that. I suppose it's relevant. I've made a set of WTC terrain that's like actually set like that. I've already got the crates and vents and forests that is my terrain matches. But the ruins are slightly different. I've now made ruins that should be like exactly correct. So got them to test here locally. I imagine I might make some more and send them up to the Auckland guys. So then it's like, cool. All right, we've got some practice tables, so we can do that at minimum. And yeah, that sort of thing. Maybe we'll have like a catch up at some point. And then as far as looking forward to, I don't know if I could say one thing. It should be awesome. Like I'm going to try make a bit of a trip of things. A neighbor's like owns or co-owns a travel agency branch, so we'll be paying him a visit again, and just sort of being trying to work out like what's the best sort of value trip I can do, like because it's like almost literally the opposite side of the world, right? Like from where I am, there's some place in Spain is if you went directly through the middle of the thing. So Europe's like, so you can go either way around the world flying to get there. So maybe look to fly one way on the way, the other way coming back, and just like stop off on somewhere neat. I have an uncle in the UK, which would be good to try see him. So obviously see all the people that I've met through Discord and online in person is awesome. Get like a really good point of reference of like, hey, am I actually any good at things? Because when you've done it right but not been able to travel as much, just play on TTS, it can be hard to gauge. But that probably going to catch up with like Chris from Team Scotland. Just all the good things.
All
Friends
the good things
to the Netherlands for work, so it's like 2 hours away. Just there's so many cool things. I am excited.
Yeah, we'll be definitely tracking that journey as it happens and see how things go. So very, very exciting.
Yeah.
Cool. Our last question for the evening. So for you, Mr. Benny Way. So at Ben, so obviously you're a father, you're a husband, you've got in real life commitments. How do you balance your competitive ambitions with 40K with doing all the adulting stuff? Like, how do you find that balance, and like, what's it like?
Poorly. No. I think like if I had to think about 40, there's been times. So to put some perspective in it. So I've had 2 businesses. I sold one earlier this year, and that was the one that I was mainly focusing on. So I've had a bit of time off this year, and there was a month or 2 period where it was literally all I was thinking about was 40K. All that, and as well, that was fun. But I think that like towards the end of that stint, that I actually found that I was playing better when I had other aspects in my life. So I found that like when I was busy, this is just my personality type. So if I'm busy during like every part of my life, when I go to play in 40K, I can kind of transfer that kind of like mental hustle over. pretty
Yeah.
quickly, and I can get in the zone. So I've got to kind of have different hats. There's kind of like competitive 40K, and there's dad, then there's like business owner. So it's like doof, and I go all right, but I find if I absorb myself too much into it, that it's really good at the beginning, and then like kind of in the middle, and then towards the end, I'm just like I kind of find it overwhelming mentally. Do you know what I mean? Being that absorbed into it. So I think it's just like making sure that. So there's times like on my games days where I just go, I've just got to go and play a game. Sometimes I just don't want to do it, and I go and play it, and I feel better for it. And I actually think that was what reminds me that it's a hobby and it's good for me, like good for my mental space. So I think that just reminding yourself and forcing yourself to go out and just play that, even if it's just that one game a fortnight you play or one game a week or whatever it is, just making sure you actually hold that up for yourself. Because sometimes you feel like I can't bother to go and play a competitive game, like my brain's not in the right space. But when you actually get there, you're like, no, I'm in exactly the right space, because you switch off from everything else and you can put all your kind of, you're on the top of your game mentally, so you can do that. So it's really good. I think it's like just making sure that you remember it's a game. So like you keeping your family and stuff first, and then when you do go away and do go to the tournaments, you can go, right, I've sorted everything out. I've got all my dad duties done before I went. I've got my businesses all set up for the weekend while I'm away. I can go and have some fun, and you just, you can switch off, and you can feel, I actually feel like it's better because you feel like you've done enough work to kind of almost earn it a little bit. If that makes sense. But yeah, it's not easy. And there's obviously times where you just like, I can't go to those 3 events because, it's kids' birthdays or stuff like that. And, so yeah, I think it's just like, just making sure, like I always try and pick my events in advance and like book them in. And it might be like as far in advance as I can, but book it in. So like you can kind of work towards making sure you can make that as a person. Do you know what I mean? So like making sure your other commitments are covered up to then. Do you know what I mean? So, and it gives you something exciting to look forward to as well, right? Like something that you can go, right, it's got nothing to do with my kids, it's nothing to do with my business, but this is all about me just playing with my toy soldiers. Can't wait, So
Yeah. Well, I'm sure, like, I imagine most people would have the thing where, like, I've had most people with partners and things like that I've talked to, right? And like, I know my parents, it's like someone's going away for a weekend. Like, my dad's into rally car stuff for a hobby of his, and like, mum enjoys when he's booked and he's going off for a thing, right? And it's just like a bit of time, so then because and that and like everyone involves like can enjoy it, right? Like if you've planned something like this and it's known, generally most people can enjoy it. Maybe when you're a father of kids, like younger kids, it could be different. Being the kid, I am not aware of like when my parents had to deal with and manage me and my brother to know whether it was a problem people going off, if that makes sense. But yeah.
I was definitely kind of really hard at the beginning, right? Like, and luckily for me, I kind of 40K came to me kind of, or I got back into it when I was probably hitting about, like 1.5 of my youngest. So it was a lot different, maybe 2. So it was still hard. It was still really hard. Like tournaments weren't a thing. There was like kind of go and play my mate's garage, for the first kind of like 6 months to a year of playing. A couple of casual tournaments, but they were very few and far between. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. So, but yeah, I think this is where the dad hammer attitude comes, right? Because dad hammer isn't actually about like, dad hammer isn't exactly like about like not playing properly or not playing seriously. It's about like the reason you're there is not necessarily to win. The reason you're there is like, I got out of the house. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm doing it. Look at me. Right. And then whatever comes after that is 40K. And like, if you win after that, brilliant. But it's like, it's very much like it's the second part of it. It's still important, but it's the second part of it,
It's like temper your expectations, right? Maximize your fun and like chances of doing all right with, because there's like dad hammer lists, right? Like Knights would be the classic dad hammer example list, right? Because just like big things, it's
you're totally right.
And all that.
You're totally right. Like it was like about like making sure you get your fun right and stuff like that. Because for me, like I enjoy being competitive. Like I play on the PlayStation, and I'm like, it has to be PvP, like Call of Duty. Something like that. It's got to be like I love that kind of competition. So competition for me is fun. But like the fun is like I enjoy the prep for it. I enjoy just making sure I've got my last bit of hobby done. Enjoy the pack of the case, get my cards ready, read my book, got my get my missions ready. Love all that. That's all part of it. And like getting out is just like, yes, I made it. This is it. It's like the pinnacle. This is the event, And then it's very much like the fun in it's the whole going to it, getting ready for going to it, getting there, deserving it, and then playing 5 games of 40K. They don't always go your way. But when they do, it's great, and it's just like that's just like an added bonus. Then you walk home and you're like, great, I went 4-1, which is generally what I go. And then and you go 4-1. This is brilliant. So I feel great about it, and it's just that's it. It's like the win's already happened before you've got there, right? That's kind of where I'm going with it. So any other garnished win's amazing.
Weird flex, Ben. Just like the win's making it to the event precedes to have an 80% win rate.
Yeah. Oh, look, sometimes things have got to align, right? And I think the more events I played this year, the more we realise that sometimes you just go in, you have a bad crack at it. Do you know what I mean? And like, there's nothing you can do about that. But then I've had ones where I've had a good run, and it's been fantastic. So you kind of live by the sword, die by the sword. So
for sure.
Sounds like some great attitudes, and like it's a win-win. So no matter what happens, as long as you have a good time and you have a great event. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Ben, for that answer. And that's it for episode 16 of 40K Frontiers. Thank you for everyone for listening. Hope you have a good one, and join us next time. Take care, everyone.
See ya.
Cheers.